he goes, oh, I have a car your size too, and I've come up on the side of the road for like 5 miles in worse stuff than over here. I'm like, yeah, but. It's all yeah buts at this point to this strange guy who's talking to me in the middle of a highway.
The millennial generation is as follows.
Welcome to
Surrounded by Idiots
Radio Podcast.
From the frigid southwest desert community of Scottsdale, Arizona, this is the Surrounded by Idiots Radio Podcast. I am back. Great to be back with you. This is Tony Dufresne, your host, author of Surrounded by Idiots, as well as the podcast. I'm glad to have you back. This was a very interesting week for me. I am back here at Scottsdale, but last Wednesday, I was in Las Vegas because I go there twice a month. I go back and forth. I have business out there, and my girlfriend's out there, so I go back and forth. And today, I want to talk about something that happened to me as I was making my way down to Scottsdale this past week, actually last Thursday morning. Because the story is a harrowing story, because I don't know if you're around here in the States, maybe you heard where the interstates got shut down. We had more snow up in northern Arizona and in Las Vegas. They got more snow than they had in like 10 or 20 years. These couple days. Of course, one of the days was when I was traveling. And they had an issue to where they shut down an entire interstate, a national highway that was going through northern Arizona. They shut it down for 8 hours because the snow fell so quickly and they weren't used to it. And it was just an absolute nightmare. And of course, I decided to travel back, and I was stuck in that mess that was up there. So I want to tell you the story about what happened. And interestingly enough, the way that the story played out, it was very metaphorical. It really showed me a lot of the places that I sabotage myself. And I think by sharing this story, maybe you'll say, oh yeah, maybe I kind of do that too. Or you'll get a pretty good idea of maybe sometimes where you might do something that you know you shouldn't do, but you end up doing it anyway because you think maybe other people want you to do it, or you think you have to for some reason where you actually don't. That may not make sense right now, but maybe it will as we go into this. So I want to start off by kind of giving you a little bit of backstory. I do make the trip twice a month, and the trip from here in Scottsdale to Las Vegas is 4.5 hours, like easy. It's just a no-brainer, 4.5. It's up through the middle of the state, and if you leave early enough, which I do all the time because I've got it down to kind of a system, then you don't hit a bunch of traffic, and it's fine. There's a few places where it's one-lane roads in the middle of nowhere, but that's fine because if you leave and you don't hit a lot of traffic, holiday traffic, and people going up to Vegas for the weekend and stuff, like they usually leave about 7 o'clock or so. I leave at like 5, so I get up there way early. And I don't have a problem. So last Wednesday, I was in Vegas for about a week, and I wanted to stay as long as I could just to hang out with my girlfriend and just do some work on my place there. And I decided that I had a job, I had an appointment that I had to do on Friday, and I put it off to the very last minute. But I had to have it. I had to do it on Friday. It was the last possible day that I could do it, and so I made it for Friday. And which means I had to leave Thursday morning because I had to come back here and prep because I had stuff here that I had to take a look at and make sure I'm up on things before I have this meeting. And so it was Wednesday night, and the weather conditions were horrible. We have snow Wednesday night in Vegas, which is almost, they rarely have it, and it's coming down. All of the weather reports are saying that it's going to be terrible and horrible. I was just looking at Weather Underground, which I use all the time, and it was indicating that if I get out early enough, then I'll be okay. But it's still really cold. Frigid cold. And I've got desert blood. I was born in Southern California, which is not exactly the tundra either. But coming out to the desert, your blood, I swear to God, your blood thins. And you're cold, and it's 72 or 73, and you're actually cold. So it's freaking freezing out. And I thought, well, if I get up early enough and I get rolling, I'll be fine. I'll get into Kingman. Kingman is the first stop. It's about 2 hours away from Vegas. So if I get in there, I'll be fine. I can kind of run in front of the storm. So my girlfriend's saying, you shouldn't go. You shouldn't go. I don't want you to go. I just have this feeling that I don't want you to go. And it just didn't seem like it would be a good thing to do or time to do. And I said, I have to. Because honest to God, I couldn't miss this Friday. This Friday thing was like a make or break thing for me. I had to be back by Friday, or I had to do the meeting on Friday, and I had to be back on Thursday for sure. So I get up Thursday morning, and it is raining where I'm at, but it's snowing around me because I'm like right by the strip where my place is. And I went through some crappy weather. I mean, it was pretty bad the first hour or so because it's pitch black out there. And it was coming down pretty good, but I made it okay. And I got to right before Kingman. And right before Kingman, Kingman's kind of a small town up in northern Arizona. And there's a ridge that goes over, just a small ridge, and you got to go over the top, and then it drops you down into the town, to the beginnings of the town. And that's where I usually stop for gas. And I was like 2 miles away, tops. And I get up there, and all of a sudden, traffic is stopping. It's a 2-lane highway. Traffic is stopped. I noticed, I looked on the other side of the highway, no traffic, which means they shut it down. So I get to the very top, and I'm right at the top where there is a turnout. And the turnout is for a highway that goes west. Now I'm going down, right? I'm going down like southeast-ish, and I'm going like down that way. And there was a turnout to go west to my right. But that's like that takes you, for you people who know this area, that takes you over to Laughlin and Bullhead City and stuff. It's like way out of the way, and you really can't get to where I want to go if you go that way. So I've just stayed there, and I stayed there, and I was checking my phone and checking the road conditions, and I was stuck. So the metaphor is I was literally stuck. I made a decision to take action against the flow, which is against what my girlfriend's intuition was, against what the weather report said. I took action anyway because I thought I had to do this. So I took it against the flow of how everything's were going. I got caught at the top of the ridge, and I was there for about 2.5 hours. And at the time, I'm still checking my phone, road conditions and stuff, and then I'm kind of messing around and I'm reading stuff just to keep my mind occupied. And I was stuck. So the metaphor is I took a wrong action, and now I'm stuck because I didn't go with the flow. Interestingly enough, during the wait, there were a few things that happened that was kind of indicative of how different people handle different things, handled the same thing. I mean, I was sitting there on my phone, kind of messing around, listening to some sports talk. There was a car full of guys up to my left, 4 guys, younger guys, and they got out and they decided just to have a snowball fight in the middle of the highway because we're all stopped there. There's about a foot of snow on the ground, so they're all out there just pelting each other with snowballs, and then I look behind me and there's this older guy, and I don't know where he got it because who can find a newspaper anymore, but he was actually reading a newspaper. And some people got out and they just kind of walked around, or they walked up just to see what they could find, or there was some dogs being walked. And, you're there for 2.5 hours. You're trying to find a place to go to the bathroom, too. So I think people tried to climb into little nooks and crannies just to relieve themselves. And then others, what they did was I saw them kind of going on the edges of the highway, and they were trying to move and to get over to that turnout because they weren't going to wait. Come to find out, the line behind me, I was about, like I said, 2 miles from the highway turnoff, where the city is. There was a 22-mile backup behind me of cars. And they actually closed the highway down as I passed in Vegas. So I passed that closure, but there were a 22-mile backup behind me. And so I'm sitting there, and, the snowball fight ended, and guys got in the car, and I'm just kind of hanging out, listening to some radio. Then out of the blue, I get a tap on my window, and I kind of glanced over and I looked, and this guy's standing there. So I roll my window down and I go, "Hey, what's up?" And he goes, "Hey, there's a lot of people behind me, and I want to try to get things moving, and so why don't you go take that turn off?" I don't know about you, but that's pretty weird to me to think that you can go, get out of your car and walk down a highway and just talk to people and say, hey, you should take this turn off. Strange. That was a very strange thing. And as he was standing there, I go, well, yeah, I mean, I would, but that's going to take me in totally the opposite direction of where I want to go. Now, I want to interject here. That's a limitation that I have, because that's a thing called linear logic. And it's like A to B to C to D, because I have my way to do things, and I know it's 4.5 hours, and I know where to go, and I know the fastest way to go. And I'm thinking that if I just wait here long enough, the highways will open up, even though the snow has gotten worse, the snowfall. I'm thinking, they're going to open up pretty soon, and we're going to get going. And this is after 2.5 hours of waiting. So I'm still trying to convince myself and this guy that I should just stay there, because this is the way that I know how to go. So then also what I said was, well, yeah, but my car is small. I have a compact car, really low to the ground. And I go, my car is small. And I was looking over at the turnout, and that had a lot of snow on it. And there were some trucks that had gone by me. But these big old trucks, I mean, I got this tiny little car. And I said, yeah, if I go this way, my car might get stuck, and then I'll be totally screwed. The guy goes, yeah, but he goes, oh, I have a car your size too, and I've come up on the side of the road for like 5 miles in worse stuff than over here. I'm like, yeah, but. It's all yeah, buts at this point to this strange guy who's talking to me in the middle of a highway. So I go, okay, I'm gonna wait. I go, not right now. I'm gonna hang out a little bit longer. I'm gonna wait and see how it goes, and that'll be like my last option. The guy goes, all right, and then just walks off, and he started talking to another car up the road, and I saw that the other car, the guy did the same thing. He just, because it shut him down pretty quick, and he just moved on, and then I didn't see him. I didn't see him again. He just vanished. So it was really weird. So after I waited a little bit longer, I took out my phone, because now the guy's in my head, and I'm thinking, yeah, maybe there's something to this. So I took my phone out, and instead of just taking that turnout, that off-ramp, onto the highway going west, the opposite direction, and just going all the way that way to a town called Bullhead City into Laughlin, Nevada, which, if for you people who know, it's right on the border of like California, Nevada, and Arizona. But because it's way the hell out there, that's like another hour and change to go out there. I decided to try to be creative and try to force things, and I got my GPS out, and I was looking for alternatives. And Google, I think it was Google Maps, had a reroute. They had a reroute that would go kind of down and around, and then you'd hit the highway on the other side of Kingman, thinking I could bypass all this stuff, not realizing in my head, well, if it's closed there, it's probably as crappy further on as it is there, and what's the chances that the highway's going to be open anyway? Of course, I wasn't thinking about this. I was still so stuck on trying to force my way down the same route that I've always gone. Totally against the flow. So I finally got this reroute, and I go, screw it, I'm out of here. So I pulled off, and thank goodness I was like right there at the turnout. I mean, some people 22 miles back, they didn't have a chance. They had to wait the whole time, which totally sucks. So I was there, turned out, I'm rolling along, and it's not bad. And there are a number of us cars who apparently went to Google Maps and looked at the same reroute, because we were all sort of following each other. And they were on some smaller county roads that I thought, well, if they're not plowing the highways, which they were not, I mean, there might be a good chance that they're not plowing any of these roads. But surprisingly, on this reroute, all those roads were fine. They were all they're a lot better than the highway was that I just left. So I'm rolling along. It's about half an hour to get to the point where I thought I had it. It looked like it was like a half mile to go until back to the highway. And all of a sudden, everything stops. And I see cars starting coming back the other way. And I'm like, oh, man, I think they're turning us around. So we roll up slowly. All of a sudden, I see there's a sheriff, and he's talking to everybody. And then once he talks to everybody, they're making a U-turn and going the other way. So he gets to me, and I kind of listened to the guy before me, because I would rather you try to help people out and not have them to re-explain 1,000 times the same thing. So I tried to listen a little bit. And basically what happened was there were a lot of people who Googled that route, and that last half mile before that, you get back on the highway is mostly uphill, and it's not that great, and it wasn't plowed, and apparently there were like 100 stuck cars. So as I got up to the sheriff, he started laughing, and he goes, how'd you get here? How'd you get out this far in the first place? Because of my little teeny car. I go, I just followed everybody else. He goes, yeah, 100 cars stuck, ice, all the way up here. He goes, it's a disaster. He goes, you should actually be glad that you just got here, because 5 minutes earlier you would have kept going and you probably would have been stuck too. And before I went, I said, what do you suggest for me to get out of here? He goes, you got to go all the way to Bullhead, just Bullhead, Laughlin, and then just go down, which is like, it's like double the miles to get home, because you have to go the opposite direction for a couple hours, and then down for a couple hours, and then east for 3 or 4 hours. It's a mess. So I'm like, shit. So I go, okay, fine. So I rolled back. So that's 30 minutes to get to him, and then another half an hour to get back to where I started. So that's an hour just to get back to where I started. And I went to west to Bullhead City, into Laughlin, into California, and then I went down south into Quartzsite in Arizona, and then I went east from Quartzsite. So I'm making a box, basically, to get back to the Phoenix and Scottsdale area. And all in all, it took me 11 hours, and it was about 450, 500 miles total for that whole entire journey. And since I was using my phone while I was waiting, because I didn't think I had to wait that long, and then I had to use it for GPS for the reroute, and then just to get the Bullhead, and then from there I kind of knew my way down to Quartzsite and the rest. But still, my phone, by the time I got to Quartzsite, my phone was like at 5%. So I'm thinking, oh shit, I have to conserve it now, because if I don't, if this thing runs out, of course I don't have a cord in my car. Why don't I have a cord? Because I am never in the car to the point where I don't use my phone in the car, because you're not supposed to. So I don't have unlimited data, so I don't use it for that stuff. And so I don't have it on usually, so I don't need a phone in the car. My phone's always charged. So I need a charge cord in my car. So without a charge cord, I was at 5%. I'm like, okay, well, I better conserve. So I didn't look at my phone, nothing. I kind of turned it off and put it in my little compartment the whole time. And when I got home, I plugged my computer in, put it up, and I checked my email. And and the first email that came up was a notification that the Friday appointment had canceled. Which means I didn't have to leave in the first place that morning, which means I didn't have to go through any of that stuff. Which means that my girlfriend's intuition and the weather and all the other stuff giving me subtle pokes to say, what are you doing? You're crazy. You should not be doing this. You should just go back and chill. That I did not adhere to. I didn't listen to. I just kind of kept forcing my way down. I waited for 2.5 hours because I was still trying to force my way into something that I knew worked but didn't work at that time, and I wasn't flexible enough. And come to find out that the appointment canceled. So, all in all, a very strange day, exhausting day. But in looking back, a lot of lessons for me in terms of how I operate and subconsciously, and the things that can take me off of, sort of being more flexible and going with the flow. The lessons that I wrote down that I learned is to listen better to the signs from the universe, to my girlfriend, to the weather, to the random guy. Also to be more fluid and more flexible and look for solutions. I mean, the funny thing is that not funny, it's sad, because after all this stuff, I was thinking back, and I was thinking, why couldn't I have just called up my appointment on Friday and tried to reschedule it for a later time? This is back when the appointment was still on. But if I had done that, if I had scheduled it for a later time, then I could have left later and gotten into town and gotten into Kingman and understood what the closures were, and then taken the appropriate detour, or waited until everything opened up and then gone through and then gotten home and then would have been home. But later on Thursday night, but still home and ready for Friday, knowing that I didn't have to get up super early and leave, because I couldn't have made, if I left Friday morning, I would not have been able to make it at the time that the appointment was scheduled. So those are the interesting takeaways that I got from my interesting snowbound trip from Vegas to Phoenix. Well, I hope you enjoyed that little tale, and maybe it will allow you to reflect on certain things that you do or you might try to force because you've done them before one way, and you're not being so flexible, and it's becoming very frustrating. I hope things are good. I hope you enjoyed that little story. Next week, I think I'm going to hit you with a big one, and this big one's going to be really the basis of my whole approach to this, and the way that everything that I do in terms of coaching and in terms of the podcast, the message, the content is going to be structured around. So stay tuned for that. If you have any questions or concerns, again, you can go to javabud.com and shoot me an email and tell me what's on your mind. If you would like to talk about a little coaching, then that's not a problem. Again, I deal with transitions, mostly people transitioning from one point of their life to another, and they're stuck. Speaking of stuck, and they want to get some clarity on that. You can hit me up on that. Also, my book is Surrounded by Idiots. You can buy it on Amazon, or you can go to the website, and you can also go there to listen to all the podcasts, and go to YouTube to watch all of the videos. Hope things are good. I will talk to you soon. Bye.